We like to visit about things that people find interesting and helpful in their businesses, and we have these discussions amongst ourselves all the time um, in an effort to try to be profitable and make our business better and make the business better for customers. And there's all the dialogue all the time about all the different traits and all the choices we have. And I think back daily to things that my father Henry Gardiner said, and we need to give these cattle a job description, and form follows function, and we all like cattle that are extremely good looking and good footed and structure and everything. But the bottom line is you give them the job description and you let them decide how they want to look. And I think one of the exciting things in the Angus business today is the good bulls of the breed for the traits of merit are some of the best looking cattle that we've dealt with in my career. So when we think about the opportunities, and I often call it Henry 101, but the discipline that we use in this program was taught to me by Henry Gardiner and Roy Wallace and those systems that take the information to create animals that can convert this cellulose into the world's greatest tasting protein. So what is that job description? First and foremost, we've got to focus on some calving ease because we have to have a live calf. I've used the joke many times, but it's still appropriate. Roy Wallace always said, dead calves have a very poor growth rate, and that's very true. So we need to start making those cattle work for us by being born alive. Simultaneously, we want to design those cattle that will fit our environments, and that might be Ashland, Kansas, Van Horn, Texas, or Terre Haute, Indiana. So we have to understand what those resources are. But in general, we're going to want a calf that is born alive and that will grow as fast and as efficiently to the end point, which for many producers, if not all producers, one way, shape, or another, it may be weaning weight, it may be yearling weight, but you want them to get to that end point as fast as they can. It's not how big they get, it's how quick they get big and quit growing. And so we need to design those cattle that have that fast, efficient, early growth that don't get out of balance for stature. And the reason for that is as simple as it's going to leave a sister in the herd that's too big for most range environments, or it can leave a carcass on the rail that causes problems for the processor. We get above 1,100 pound carcass weight, and you break that chain down, that costs a lot of money to everybody. And you get to that physical size much bigger, then we've got to do some work on portion control. So I think it's like, I like to call it Goldilocks. We select these cattle that are just right, calving ease, early growth, moderate stature. And I think one of the really important things that's come about, certainly with the inception of U.S. premium beef and other value-added systems, certified Angus beef, is why don't we start with the end in mind? Why don't we create a product in beef that the world wants? And when we look at the demand equation that has been built over the past 25 years, from when U.S. premium beef started and the Harlan Ritchie 5 years to meltdown, meaning at the rate we're losing market share, beef would not be a relevant protein in 5 years. Well, why was that? Well, our product wasn't very good. 1 out of 4 steaks ate bad. It was tough. It wasn't palatable. And if you went to your pickup and it only started, 75% of the time, 25% of the time, you're going to be infuriated. And so we were trying to be chickens and pigs instead of the ruminant animal that we are, that can convert cellulose that those monogastrics can't into the greatest tasting protein in the world, but we forgot the equation of having the taste. I often joke, if I'm going to go to Brahms ice cream store, I'm not ordering skim milk. I'm going to get the good stuff, and that's what we need in beef too. And so when I think about end product merit and starting with the end in mind, we really have to look at marbling. And marbling to this date is still the single biggest reason that Angus cattle, predominantly black cattle, do not reach certified Angus beef. I think the certified Angus beef standards today are around 0.6 or so for marbling, which is, it's a little bit above average. to make a directional change, that's probably not going to do it with those kind of specs. We have cattle today that can rival other breeds of cattle for prime. I mean, Wagyu. We have cattle that are way above prime plus. And I think one of the things that often gets lost in all the dialogue and discussion is they think that marbling comes with a price. But it's free. There is no correlation between marbling or in-product merit and reproduction. I'll show my maturity now. You go way back in history, and Twigg Marston, Kansas State University, did a literature review, took all of the research studies, and there's like a 0.0001 correlation between reproduction and in-product merit. It's a zero correlation. Fast forward 15, 20 years later, Scott Greiner at Virginia Tech University does the same thing. All of the new data shows the same thing. And then go to the final literature review in about 2018 or 19 from Iowa State University. And it's still the same thing, where there is no correlation between carcass traits and maternal function. I've had people tell me to my face, well, you're a terminal breeder. I go, oh, that sounds kind of final. And I think, no, we breed for all traits. And folks will come to the ranch and they'll see our facilities, which we need to have to be able to handle large groups of cattle. But we've just come in from working cattle and checking pastures, and the average cow in this place is on her own for 10 and a half months a year, meaning she's grazing either native range, triticale, improved grasses, sedan grass, but they're ruminant animals. And so when you look at in-product merit and you look at all these traits that we're bouncing around, don't put yourself on an information island. The American Angus Association has the world's largest database. It has the world's best database. It has the most accurate database. And we can get cattle. I had a customer say today, I can have calving, I can have growth, I can have marbling and muscle, and I can have maternal function, and I can have stature, and I can reproduce it all in an arid environment where we get 16 to 18 inches a year, and that's all the same animal. And I think that's what discipline allows us to do, and what Henry's rules of selecting these Michael Jordans of the Angus breed that have that calving ease, early growth, in-product merit, maternal function, and won't grow too big to fit the environment. Because these forage-based animals, give us so many options. And I think, it used to be pretty exciting when we could get an Angus bull that was +1 for marbling. Well, now 2 is much more common, and a 2 marbling with a 1.0, ribeye, which those are just numbers, but when you look at where they rank within the population of Angus cattle, 2 is a 1%. 1.65, I think, is top 1% of the breed today on non-parent animals. And so 2 is pretty substantial, and over 1, that'd be about top 3%. So, okay, those are 2 traits. Let's don't get off in the weeds on that. Let's remember, let's keep double-digit calving ease. Let's keep breed average or so for stature. Let's keep top 25% for growth. And, let's define maternal function as she bred, she reproduced, she gets to stay. If she didn't, we will make food out of her. It's really just that simple. And so we take all these traits and we, and I'll get Facebook love or whatever you want to call it, we've got to be real maternal, you got to be real terminal. You can have both. We have strategically selected clear back in the early 80s, Bando and Traveler were good bulls for in-product merit. Then along comes Scotch Cap, and he was the best bull of his time in about 1986. And so to the best of our ability, on through Precision and New Design 036 and on through Predestined and all the bulls that we know, for the last few decades, those cattle in our time-restricted breeding season, and we can push 4 cycles with synchronization into 60 days. And we can get a 95% pregnancy rate. Now, you're not going to have a 95% calving rate, but it's very simple to make those cattle work for you by getting them pregnant in that time-restricted breeding program, and then if they don't, then you make arrangements for them to do something else. And quite frankly, that has been, as we do the math, Mark Gardiner graduated from Kansas State in 1983, so that was 40 years ago. So we've been using, the very best bulls of the Angus breed for marbling and for muscle and for all of the other traits for 40 years. And, and we haven't sacrificed anything. I often think about Dad and his reproduction records, and he had tremendous records on clipboards and paper, and we still have all those. He's 65% conception rate. Cows were 68, heifers were 58. So, and why can't a heifer be better than a cow on a pregnancy rate? Well, my friends and the reproductive physiologists say, well, if we knew that, we wouldn't be working at the university. The reality of it is you're going through some puberty and some maturity changes, and that's been a given. Obviously now I just admitted it's been 40 years, but that's a given that there's kind of a 10% difference between virgin heifers and cows. And so I say all that, and I'm like, we think of the opportunity and we think of these value-based systems like U.S. premium beef, and we keep charts on it. The last 7 years charts, 19,000 head of cattle have averaged $150 per head above the base price. And they're 33% prime and right at 99% choice. All those things are there. And their sisters has replicated in some of the toughest country that I know. I'm so proud of our community here in Clark County, and I look at all the people and how they've used, say, the Ashland Veterinary Center and the Ashland Vet Clinic, and lots of AI, lots of using those very best bulls of the Angus breed to make their cattle better. And they put those pounds, they calve easier, they grow faster, they weigh more, they have more value from a marbling and muscle standpoint, they retain ownership and go through U.S. premium beef. And you take that $150 that we've seen over the past 7 years, that's those cattle in the community. And if you fast forward to the last 2 years, that's averaged $232. And that's because of more value in prime. I mean, we got up to $55 last year in U.S. premium beef, and so 1,000-pound carcass at $55, that's $550 a head more. So I'm using a lot of words to say you can have it all. And to limit yourself and overthink it so much that I can't have all of these traits that the American Angus Association so well documents, none of them are perfect. There's never been a perfect bull, and there never will be. But we take those and we take the best and we multiply those, and then we take the next generation. And and I think a lot about Henry, and I think a lot about Roy. They would be dancing on top of the hay bales or the feed bunk or the sail ring. Damn, boys, this is good, because it is. And Mark Gardiner will sit here and tell you, like, you ain't seen nothing yet, because we're getting ready to roll now as we get more and more generations stacked with these prepotent genetics. And that's opportunity. That's so exciting that we can have that opportunity, and we can have these communities have a chance at profit and to survive and to make it better for everybody.